What's up, everybody, and welcome to Slasher Quest, Episode 2. Last week we talked about Camp Fear from 1991. This week we'll be talking about something a little bit better, and we will be talking about 1981's The Prowler. I'll be continuing on with my journey through the slasher movie catalog and my quest to watch all of them. I am up to probably about 250 something, so without further ado, let's jump into the Prowler. "1981's The Prowler, also known as Rosemary's Killer, and in some cases, Pitchfork Massacre. We're not sure if that one is official, though, because it may have been released by someone who didn't have the rights. It is directed by Joseph Zito. The plot for this one is an unknown killer clad in World War II U.S. Army fatigues stalks a small New Jersey town bent on reliving a 35-year-old double murder by focusing on a group of college kids holding an annual graduation dance. This movie, it starts right off with a narration by a woman that we assume is the Rosemary, reading a Dear John letter that she sends to her boyfriend who is overseas fighting in the war. She explains, that she's going to leave him and that maybe when he comes back, they can still be friends, trying to friend zone the guy. And of course, he takes exception with it. So the next thing we see is the annual graduation dance, and Rosemary has a new guy with her, and they are leaving the dance, and they're going to go parking. Well, they end up going into like a gazebo area, and they're, making out, having a good time. And all of a sudden, a man dressed in full army fatigues, wielding a pitchfork, shows up, puts the pitchfork into the back of the boyfriend and out the back of Rosemary, killing them both. Flash forward to the present time, and we see a new group of college students preparing for this graduation dance. The story for this one, I guess, has a little similarity to My Bloody Valentine, which came out right around the same time, of a past murder and murderer coming back to take vengeance during an annual dance. Sometimes, like when I first saw this, those two kind of crossed over a little bit with me, doing the similarities of the plot, and the killer looks kind of the same. The killer from My Bloody Valentine was a minor, but his face is obscured with the mask. Much like in this, where the killer in a Prowler, has the military helmet, the full military garb with a trench mask up over his face. Very menacing and just a cool looking killer. And this is one of the things that this movie has going for it. Another thing this movie really has going for it is the special effects. The special effects and kills were done by the legend Tom Savini. He actually considers this his best work, and I can really see why. Like going back and watching this, probably like this might be the 10th time I've seen this movie, right around there. It's really hard to ballpark those, but very brutal, very mean spirited, and just gory. This really took the gore that Savini did in the original Friday the 13th and ramped it up even more. And you kind of see that in the slasher genre, that everybody's trying to outdo what everyone else did. And especially Tom Savini always wanted to do more than what he did previously in his other movies. So we kind of see a general progression with that in his films alone. I'll get right into the kills here. We got that first kill with Rosemary and her boyfriend, which was extremely effective, seeing that pitchfork go into his back and come out of hers all the way through, skewering both of them. And I kind of wonder, how long was that pitchfork? Like, would a normal pitchfork reach through two grown people? Regardless, it's extremely effective and gory. Um, the first kill we get in the present day is very iconic for the slasher genre and one of the memorable things from this movie. We get a couple that are going back to their room. The girl gets in the shower. Of course, she has to be getting into the shower naked because it's a slasher movie. The boyfriend, of course, is going to join her. He walks off into the other room to get ready, and where he gets ambushed by the Prowler. The Prowler wrestles him around, and he ends up getting a bayonet and stabbing it through the top of the guy's head when it comes out the bottom of his jaw. Blood everywhere. The guy's like fighting, and you can hear like groans and everything. Just incredibly effective. When the guy finally stops fighting, like his eyes roll into the back of his head, and that always stuck with me. The first time I watched this, it was one of those oh my god moments, and even now, it sounds terrible, but when you're a slasher fan and you watch these kind of movies, you just any crazy, gory, disturbing kill just brings a smile to your face. Which, you know, non-horror fans would probably think I'm deranged, but whatever. We're all if you're watching this, you're a horror fan. So now like the girlfriend, she's still in the shower. The Prowler walks up, she's thinking it's her boyfriend. The door gets open, and then boom, there's the Prowler with his pitchfork ready to go. And she's like trying to fight him off. She's backing into the corner. He gets the pitchfork and jams it into her. And this is one of the few cases in a slasher movie, especially of this time, where we get the mixture of crazy, intense gore and nudity. I like in the future, like when they would try to mix those things together, MPAA would always cut it. At this time, the MPAA wasn't really cracking down as hard. It was more towards like the mid 80s, late 80s, where movies were just getting hacked to shreds. And one of that immediately comes to mind is Friday the 13th, Part 7. So many of the scenes of kills in that were just cut so they could get even an R rating. Where this one, it's way more brutal, way more ill-tempered, I guess, and just it just goes for it. Very intense. The next kill we get is in a swimming pool. There's a girl swimming around. When she tries to get out, the Prowler kicks her in the face, which always kind of catches me off guard and makes me laugh. She's then fighting to like tread water and like regain her bearings, and the Prowler grabs her, grabs a bayonet and slits her throat, and it's incredibly disturbing and effective. One of the best throat slits I think in the slasher genre. We get some crazy shots like in the pool, like the water turning red. You see her legs kicking, and then all of a sudden she just goes limp. That's one of those mean spirited things too that just was like a lasting impression for this movie when I saw it the first time. We get a little more time going by, and then we get another kill where a girl gets stabbed in the throat with a bayonet. Another, gory and intense kill. Then we get the climax. In this movie, it moves along fairly fast, and I guess a general trope of these early 80s slashers is sometimes they take a little bit of time to build up. And I was surprised watching it this time after I've watched so many more slashers since my last viewing of this, that it gets right into the suspense rather quickly. There's not too much build up, but you still get character development, which is one of the things that the early 80s slasher movies did very well. This one, the climax of it, I guess, it's not as riveting as, even like the final battle on Friday the 13th, where it's a little more gut wrenching. But I will say that this one, it pays off at the end. We get the final girl, Pam. She is getting chased by the Prowler. Your typical, she hits him, runs away, he finds her, and they're like in this house. And then out of nowhere, he's like he's trying to take her out once and for all, and like this townsperson named Otto comes in with a shotgun and like blows the Prowler away, splatters him up against the wall, and the Prowler falls down like a sack of potatoes. And we get the something that would go on to be a cliche in slasher movies where hero and the final girl are making eye contact, and they have like a moment where she almost like says thank you without saying it. He looks at her, smiles, and the whole time they keep panning the camera back to the Prowler, and just from watching other slashers, especially like Friday the 13th series, that the killer is going to get up and he's going to take out the hero. And the Prowler does jump up, wields a shotgun, and blows the guy away. Now with the stunning scene of that, Pam like quickly jumps to the Prowler and grabs his gun. They wrestle with it for a while, and then we get probably the greatest slasher villain kill that I can think of. He's wrestling around with a gun. She's got her hands on it. They're fighting over it for a while. Somehow the gun ends up getting like under the Prowler's chin, and she quickly like reacts and pulls the trigger and ends up just blowing his head like to pieces. The special effect in it is awesome. Anytime there's a good head explosion, I'm there for it. This one does not disappoint. I remember seeing an interview with Tom Savini about making that cast of the Prowler's head and trying to figure out the best way to make it explode. And they shot it with an actual shotgun. The cast was full of fake blood and actually leftover shrimp and crab dip from catering in the movie. So you get like pieces of just random chunks just flying everywhere, blood, and I really wish that they would have just like faded to black right there. But this movie kind of goes in the vein of the Friday the 13th series, where we have an amazing ending right here, but we don't end there. We end up adding like the scene showing Pam doing better and with her boyfriend. They go back to the main house, and Pam walks in. Her boyfriend's going to talk with the other police officers. She goes up the stairs and into the room where like the shower massacre happened. She hears the water still running, and she opens up the door, walks in, opens up the shower door, and then she screams because the guy who got the knife through the top of the head is like hung up in the shower. He reaches out and like grabs her shirt. Like, there's no way this guy would survive. She screams and fights away and backs off. The boyfriend hears her screaming and he runs to the house, and she's there like covering her eyes, screaming, and then she looks up and the guy in the shower is not moving anymore. So it's really strange. Like, did was the man still alive? Did she imagine all that? And I don't know. I feel like they just kind of pissed away the ending, and it's kind of disappointing uh, to have that crazy intense kill of the Prowler, and then to not end it right there, like leaving that impression with people. I feel like just was a loss. Like they could. I felt like that would have been way more effective. Uh, like I mentioned, Savini did the special effects for this. He also played the part of the Prowler during the kills, so he's committing all the kills in this, dressed in the outfit. He considers this his best work, which is saying a lot because Savini did some incredible stuff, especially in the 80s. The special effects were so elaborate that setup would take like an entire day. So they had to build like the shoot schedule around this, um, which I mean isn't too crazy. It's crazy to think about now, but in the 80s, like it was all about the slasher special effects, and this movie had some of the best. They got Savini coming right off from doing the movie Maniac, which also has pretty like impressive special effects and an awesome head explosion with a shotgun. So That's just a case of Tom Savini taking something that was effective and just cranking it up like to another level, which is something he's really known for. This the director Joseph Zito would go on to work with Tom Savini again in like just a short 3 years later in Friday the 13th, the final chapter, which many people consider the best of that series. So Tom Savini and Joseph Zito together, that's like slasher royalty right there. And I'm kind of surprised that Zito doesn't get mentioned too much for, his work in the slasher genre. You hear a lot about Wes Craven, you hear a lot about John Carpenter, who's amazing. I mean, it's John Carpenter. But for a slasher and 80s horror director, Zito had some hits like and that were effective and left an impression on the genre. This movie is one of the very few 80s slashers that is a standalone film and has no sequels. I think that's adds to like my love of this as well. And especially with movies too, like Popcorn and My Bloody Valentine and The Burning. The Burning is one of my favorite slasher movies, and I will definitely be talking about that sometime. Um, it's nice to see like these really high quality slashers that did not get sequels because even like the best series, like the quality went down towards the end. Nightmare on Elm Street is definitely one of those. Halloween even, and Friday the 13th. Maybe there was just too many sequels, and then you shouldn't have had so many. I mean, I love them all, but I can admit that the quality definitely dipped. If some of these movies too that didn't get sequels, like they made money, but not enough for uh, the studios to decide to make sequels. And I know that was definitely the case of My Bloody Valentine, and it might have been the case here too as well. I kind of love that this kind of stands out, and you can bring that out to people who are fans of the more known series and be like, you should watch The Prowler because it is effective and not as many people know about it. My grading system I mentioned last time is I take a few categories, those being special effects, the acting, the plot, the ending, the killer, the kills, and the replay value. I base a grade from 1 to 10 on each of those, and then I take the average. This movie ended up scoring a 7.7 out of 10 for me. I gave the special effects a 9. I think I originally had them as a 10, but I've seen more movies that have taken that even farther, even ones from Tom Savini that have taken them even farther. Uh, and that kind of lent itself, like, this is the early 80s. They had some great ideas. The special effects were awesome. But when later installments came, they knew that like the special effects were the money shots and what people really remembered about that. So, only naturally that they like just kind of gradually get more and more intense, and the technology got even better. So, as far as an early 80s slasher, this might be the best special effects that you're going to see. So in conclusion, like The Prowler is an amazing slasher. If you're into 80s slashers or even just 80s horror and you haven't seen this, I highly recommend you check it out. The character development, the story, the special effects, just the overall tone of this movie are very memorable. And you get that ending with the head explosion. I mean, what's not to love about that? It makes this movie even more memorable because of it. Uh, so yeah, highly recommended from me. And I feel like my next episode, I'm gonna have to like try to ramp it up even farther and try to find another slasher to talk to you guys about that has crazy special effects. But stay tuned and we'll see what I come up with. And as always, be kind and rewind.